Well, Mike, it's nice to see you, albeit virtually. I trust you're keeping well out on the West Coast.
I am. Thanks so much, Rodney, and belated Happy New Year.
Thank you very much, Mike. Same to you. It'll be nice to say that in person again sometime soon, I'm hoping.
Hopefully, hopefully.
So, like I said, you're out on the West Coast. Tell me, what are clients talking to you a lot about?
Yeah, no, thanks, Rodney. One of the issues that's actually kind of creeped up over the last few months, even though the guidance was released in the fall, is the new final foreign tax credit regulations that were released in September, and essentially, in particular, the new guidance on foreign tax redetermination. So essentially, the guidance that tells you what to do when you have a foreign tax adjustment, and you either owe more foreign taxes or less. And historically, taxpayers were required to notify the IRS of these foreign tax redeterminations. The very interesting and almost crazy part is that the new final regulations essentially require you to file an amended return every time you have one of these foreign tax redeterminations. And if you owe more U.S. tax, you actually have to file an amended return sort of at the time you file the return for the year in which the redetermination occurs. So let's just say I have a redetermination in 2021 that relates to 2018. I have to file the amended return for 18 with or around the same time as my 2021 return. Now, if you're in a U.S. refund position, so you overpaid foreign taxes and you got a refund, you got a refund back, or a U.S. Refund back, you essentially get the typical 10-year statute. So that's a little bit nicer, but at the end of the day, you're still in this position of having to file an amended return, which a lot of companies weren't aware of. And if that sounds bad, things get even worse. So here's the interesting thing that a lot of companies are realizing is that they may need to file multiple returns for a given year. Essentially what happens is that if you have multiple foreign redeterminations across multiple years, you have to file an amended return for each one of those years. So again, taking my 2021 example, if I have a redetermination that relates to 17 and then one that relates to 18, I actually have to file an amended return for each. And when you think about, companies with big multinational groups or highly acquisitive that have lots of foreign entities with lots of these redeterminations, you could find yourself having to file upwards of 3 to 4, maybe with one client I'm working with, as many as 7 to 8 amended returns for a given year. And that really is just kind of unbelievable. And it sort of seems like the wrong answer and probably not what the IRS has intended. But sadly, that appears to be what the law says, and there doesn't appear to be much relief. So it is quite astounding and a little bit scary.
Oh my, that must come as, I was going to say a surprise, but surprise is clearly the wrong word. An unwelcome surprise, let's put it like that. It must come as an unwelcome surprise because in today's environment where we see foreign governments really ramping up audits and assessing additional taxes, this must soon become just an unwieldy compliance exercise for a lot of multinationals.
I think that's right, Rodney. And in particular, coming out of the COVID years, we can expect to even see even more increased audit activity outside the U.S., as tax authorities are trying to replenish, their revenues. So I think you're 100% right. And I think, again, sadly, typically we like to be able to offer, sort of some kind of magic bullet to kind of get taxpayers out of this. And sadly, there doesn't appear to be one. One thing that we have been telling companies to do is simply prepare. So, take this time to kind of understand what the current kind of portfolio of tax controversies you have outside the U.S., as well as the ones you expect in the pipeline, to kind of at least understand that landscape. And then I think from there, the next kind of best thing you can do is put processes in place that help you effectively track those, and also kind of, to the extent you can, combine as many of these redeterminations to do a single amended return as possible. So one thing we're exploring with a handful of taxpayers is this so-called 905C pooling election, which essentially lets you kind of group or bundle all the redeterminations occurring in pre-TCJA years into a single 2017 year. And so it would minimize the number of amended returns you need to file for those earlier years. The trade-off, of course, is that 2017 was also the year in which the 965 repatriation tax applied. So if you elect into that pooling arrangement, you may experience a foreign tax credit haircut due to the 965 rule. So it really is kind of a balancing exercise. We've been modeling this out with a handful of companies, and sometimes you get kind of, surprising results. Other times you get results that you'd expect. But I think, again, the key takeaway is you need to start thinking about these issues now, and also some of the different plays you might have available to you and the pros and cons of each.
Well, really good advice, Mike, and really interesting topic. So, like I said, I'm sure a lot of people just didn't focus on this, but this pooling election sounds as though it's definitely one that's worth modeling out and understanding what's the cost benefit versus having to do multiple years worth of compliance.
I think that's right. Well, and the interesting thing too that we're modeling out, Rodney, is not just the impact from a foreign tax credit perspective, but as you know, and as you and I talk about very frequently, there are all sorts of knock-on effects when you do have even changes in foreign taxes. I mean, sometimes it impacts expense allocation, sometimes it impacts 78 gross up, sometimes it'll have knock-on subpart F consequences. So again, I mean, some of that modeling isn't just thinking about the pure FTC issue. It's also kind of how does this impact the rest of my structuring? Does it upend some other arrangements I may have in place? So again, yeah, I think that's right. Modeling in this context is incredibly critical and frankly, very, very helpful in terms of making these very hard decisions. So.
Well, that's certainly a lot to think about, Mike. On that note, I think I'll leave you be because I do know that you're working just on this topic right now. So thank you for your time. And I certainly look forward to seeing you in person again sometime soon.
Definitely. Thanks so much, Rodney. I'll talk to you soon.